So one of the reasons for the trip coming to Durres today was to find out about the trains, whether or not they're still running or not. And they have a sign outside here that gives the schedules, which I'll show you right now. So these train schedules are absolutely not accurate. We walked out to the train, the tarmac on there, talked to a guy, and he explained that basically from here in Durres, the trains only go to two places. One, they still do go to Elbasan, and they also go to Kashar, which is right outside of Tirana. But the tracks and the bridges are no good, so the ones to Schroeder, which we had planned on going on, they just no longer run. The railways in Albania, very old, they don't have a lot of infrastructure, they're run down. The government has received money from, I believe it's the European Union, to help them establish new railways, and those projects are underway, so eventually they should have good railway systems again. But I did want to ride the trains for the experience. And anyway, we'll see you when we come back. Thanks. So this is the old Albanian train station back from the communist era. And you can see here this sign, all the places that the trains used to go. To Gollum, to Laway, to Leeds, to Vlor. And all of that's part of a distant era now, because the trains are basically going extinct in Albania. There's only two terminal places that it still goes. To just outside Tirana, the capital, because they tore down the old train station, the Way of Progress downtown. So you have to go many kilometers outside Tirana to Kashar, which is where we're getting ready to go. But you see this, the old communist era train stations that probably won't be here the next time I get to Albania, because it's all disappearing. See all the old trains on there with the graffiti? Actually some pretty good artwork on there on the side of them as far as the stenciling and the stuff like that goes. That train probably doesn't run anymore. It's part of a bygone era. Here you've got the place where you can sit, wait for the train station, back when it was much more bustling and much more busy than it is now today. And up here is the train we're going to take to Kashar, which is right outside of Tirana. It is. These trains are, there's something else. Let me just put it that way. It's piece of shit comes down there. But should be fun. Looking forward to this. I've been researching this and trying to find out if the trains were still working in Albania since I started this trip. And there's just not much of an online culture here. So it was hard to get any sort of information about the trains, about the schedule, until basically we came here ourselves, and you just had to go into the station, and the guy that worked there was really nice and explained to us that no, there's only two places they go anymore, because The bridges are out, and some of the train tracks are still unsafe. But this should be fun. It should be an adventure. I really kind of like the artwork on the sides of them, to be honest with you, the graffiti. But he tried to talk me out of taking the train. He's like, why don't you take the bus? It's cleaner, it's faster, it's cheaper. It's like, because I want to go on a train. I love trains. So I'm going to video the length of the train down here and get a picture of the engine of it and show you guys. So here's the front of the train. The engine is going to take us from here in Durres all the way down back to Tirana. So the train that we're on is scheduled to leave here at 4 o'clock from Durres and travel very slowly all the way to just outside the capital of Tirana in what's called Kashar. So they don't have a terminal anymore in the capital because I think they're building an interstate or something there. I guess it's not an interstate, they don't have states, but a large highway that they needed to basically have that station for the construction area. So we're in here in what is pretty, I mean, it's a pretty spacious car. It's older, but there was plenty of storage space even today on there. So if you look up, we've got like overhead bins, 3 seats across, and little bitty cabin configurations. The windows open up. And that's just one of the cars. You also have this area here, which is more of the open area. You might have noticed the train started. So anyway, I'm going to go back to the seat until we get going. Still got to buy the tickets. So the train has left the station on our way to Kashar outside of Tirana. The train goes very slow. Much slower than the bus ride would take to get from Durres back to Tirana. But then you wouldn't have the fun and the enjoyment of this adventure of riding on the trains. I love trains. I rode trains from all over Europe. Albania is the only place in Europe that I'm aware of where the train system does not connect to any of the other countries, of countries that actually have train systems in there. I may be wrong, there may be another one, but it's the first one that I've ever seen that didn't. So, stuff that you won't see on an influencer's channel, where those everything's upbeat and nice. This is the real Albania. making a pickup. I think we're being hijacked on the Albanian train. There's no like air conditioning or anything on the train, but all of the windows are open. They're halfway down, and you get a really good breeze coming in. So it's really not that bad. It actually feels very good. It's very cooling coming in. Even though the train's moving very, very slowly, you're still getting that air coming in. You get to sit back and see it because it is, oh my goodness, it's like a train, it's like a locomotive graveyard. All those old engines. I wonder if they still work. Oh, people in the way. Get out of the way of the train. There's like everywhere we go. So far, leaving Durres, outside on this train is we're seeing like just random plots of corn, like 1, 2, maybe 3 stalks. Here's some over here, quite a bit. Getting outside the city of Durres right now, where there's like a mosque. So anyway, the stewardess came. I had to come away from there to get interrupted to actually pay for the ticket. So you just get on the train, and we're about 10 minutes into the ride. Besides going through our first tunnel, so it was time to pay, and so we got the tickets, and they were 70 lek, so a little less than 70 cents for the train ride all the way from Durres to Kashar, which is right outside of Albania. Back to the journey. Oh, sorry, Tirana. I guess we're in Albania the entire time. As you can see, the train's seen its better days in some regards. It's like passerbyers like taking turns, throwing rocks at the trains going by. Sadly, I heard that there was not enough engineers that actually know how to run these things anymore, the engines, to keep them going. So a lot of the engineers are much older and are nearing retirement age, and they don't have anybody that can keep the next generation of these going, even if they still had them. Some beautiful views coming over this way, though. bus, you'd never be able to do this. You see there, out in the distance, there's the roadway. You don't get to see these kind of views, and you're not going as slowly. So you can't really see all the scenery and all the stuff that you would when you're riding a train. Again, major intersections or stuff, the train tends to slow down. It's almost like we're getting ready to come to another stop, it seems like. Maybe to pick more people up along the way or to drop off. I know when they asked us about the tickets, we wanted to know where we were going. Just assume Kashar, which is the end of the line, basically. That obviously is where we were going. Neat stuff. I haven't been able to catch it on film yet because every time we pass it, I'm filming for some reason at the time. But we'll start passing like some minor roads, thoroughfares, and they have the guardrails that go down to block the traffic off on there, so that the cars don't cross the tracks, but they're manual. In other words, there's an actual guy sitting there in a vest whose job it is to lower that when the trains are coming manually and then to raise it back up manually. So it's not like you know, in my hometown in the United States, where we have those guardrails come down that the train is rolling along and it triggers it, they automatically come down. Not so here, apparently. Apparently, I mean, as long as the trains keep operating, there's some job security for some people there. And I find that very interesting. I've never seen that anywhere else in the world. There's a lot of villas in between the areas that we're going on. He's got a ton of hay stored up. Let's just give you a gander of some of them. We are starting to get closer into Tirana because I can start to see some of the skyline from out here in the distance. These people have a really neat looking garden. But anyway, I'll try to catch one of those real things before the end of the trip, because that is something interesting to see. I've seen it twice now. I'm sure that it's been more on the trip than I had actually noticed, because I'm only looking at one side rather than both sides of the train. It's kind of sad. These trains used to run all up and down the country. Now the infrastructure's just collapsed. The government had no money to keep them up. Yet, I mean, there's still people on this train today who are riding it. I don't know if it's because it's more affordable. It's about half the price of the bus ride, but we're still talking like 70 cents difference in the price. I will say it's the most affordable train journey that I've ever had, that I actually paid for in all of my worldly travels. We're slowing down, and I think we're actually coming up to another station or something. There seems to be a old locomotive at this one that, by the looks of the front of it, probably doesn't run anymore. Let's see if we can see. definitely some sort of a train station. I'm assuming not bar stop. If it was, it would be the terminal, because this is the end of, where we're going is the end of the line for the day, for the trains and for the engines. I think we're getting ready to get going again. Yeah, so here is an old station. Locomotive was still functioning. It's just not hauling passengers anymore. It's hauling, look like rock and gravel. So I'm no train expert by any stretch of the imagination on there. I like riding them. I have fun on them. Love traveling by trains, but actually knowing about them and how they operate, where they're manufactured, or anything else, I don't know. So take it with a grain of salt, my musings that I'm about to give up, but I'm speculating that these are trains that were brought here from, my guess is back when it was East Germany. I see a lot of, in the architecture of the engine up front, it just seemed like some of the stuff you would have seen in Eastern Germany. I never was in Eastern Germany. I was far too young to have been there during the communist era, but I had seen some of their old trains that had been replaced at stations when I was traveling during the 1990s. And my guess is these trains were purchased back in the maybe 50s or 60s. Or maybe later, and they just bought older trains from there, from Eastern Germany, and brought them here. But that's, like I say, it's totally a guess. You know, put it in the comments below. I'd have no way of researching that, because like I say, Albania is not an online culture. I mean, you find out stuff on the ground here. Stuff that you do find out online is either highly inaccurate or it's just completely out of date. So anyway, just my guess, my musings, while I'm sitting here enjoying my train. I don't know if you caught the guy manually lowering the gate or not. I hope I got it on film. I saw that one at the last minute, was hoping that I would be able to get it. Hopefully it made the shot. If it didn't, I'll try to get one more. Another thing about riding the train that I guess I should mention is, as I alluded to earlier, it doesn't go all the way into Tirana. So you're going several kilometers outside the city to Kashmir. So although the train is cheap, if that's your reason for riding it, it's not mine. It would add to your expense, because you're going to have to get some sort of transportation from Kashmir, either by a public city bus or by taxi to get back into Tirana, which is going to cost you a little bit more money. If it's a bus, it's probably going to be 40 to 50 lek, less than 40 or 50 cents. But that puts you back up in the price range of a bus, basically from the terminal of Tirana all the way to the terminal in Durres. Well, it's looking like we're coming to the end of the road on this train journey. It's sad, but 2021 may be the very last year that these trains are ever running again. Every 6 months or so, they lose more track that they're able to operate on, more bridges go out, fewer engines can be repaired to work. It could be that this is the last year that these trains ever run. Maybe one day they'll get the promised infrastructure to build the new railway systems, to connect those to the rest of Europe. They're hoping one day to join the EU. Maybe all that happens, maybe it doesn't. But I am glad that I was able to come to Albania this year and ride these trains while they still exist. Into the line. This is Kashar. Last stop before you get into Tirana. Train doesn't run there anymore, as I previously said. Last look at the train before we leave. As the engine drives off into the distance, where I suppose it will turn around, and sometime tomorrow morning we'll take this train back to Durres. Now it's time to try to find our way from the station here in Kashar and get to Tirana. Let the adventure begin.